you mangy dogs. Swab the decks and hoist the sails. The guns on board be needing some proper manning. Pieces of 8 and a fine wench on your arm. If your work be not too shoddy. Careful not to flounder too badly, though, or you may have to dance the hempen jig as we see you to Davy Jones. Chappie, my boy, on with the show.
Welcome everybody, friends, folks, foes, and fellow pirate mateys, to this week's latest installment of our Friday night feature edition Pirate Radio Podcasts. It's episode 203. We're taking time this go-round to reflect on the life, musical career, and all too untimely death of former Beatle John Lennon. I am your host, as always, the Robin Hood's Chief Communications Officer, Jaffe Ryder. First go round, we had a bit of a technical glitch and snafu, but yes, it looks like things are off and sailing just in the exact sort of capacity we would like to have things. So that's really good to see. Great you could join us. Hope that you, if not Beatles fans, at least have a few things to say. Lennon himself, of course, a controversial figure in some people's eyes. In many others, just a great musician who had a lot to say, and when it comes to people's music, of course, you can read into it whatever you care to. We have got on board here this go-round Reverend Jim Callis out of Washington State, USA, down in Los Angeles, Pirate Larry, and via the great Midwest Plains state of Kansas, Princess Jaybird Wells. So, important to remind everyone, of course, to check out WPRPN. Sign up is free. If you have any problems, let us know. Our email is pirateoneradio@protonmail.com. That works if you have any PayPal donations as well, too. Let's not forget. It also helps if you want to contact us in that manner to suggest either show or guest ideas. We're always on the hunt for quality content, of course. This go-round, we had a guest booked. In the end, not sure what happened, whether he just flaked out or maybe there was a family emergency and was unable to contact us. But yeah, either way, we do like to hear from people when we do have them on board and they have given us their word, showing an interest in dropping by. It just leaves you scrambling when at the last minute you're expected to improvise and put something else together. So Corbin, if you're out there listening, you're welcome to drop in. And as a fellow musician as well, too, presumably might have a thing or two to say about the late, great John Lennon. Lots of things people can do, of course. Take a look at the show description links we have available via YouTube. That'll take you off in all sorts of different directions, hopefully not lead you on too much of a wild goose chase. If you want to call the show directly here, you can via Skype. pirateoneradio@gmail.com is how you do it. pirateoneradio@gmail.com. We'll happily take your questions, comments, whatever it is that you have to deliver. And give you a chance to reach a wider audience than perhaps you might normally do. So there we go. But yes, the stars are, with all their crazy and chaotic alignment, hopefully going to work out rather well this week, given the fact that myself and I think a couple people we have on board here with this little improvised mini roundtable, I think a few of them are either Beatles or John Lennon fans or both. But I guess we might as well just open things up as we take a look at the YouTube end of things. We've got nearly 10 people managing to make their way into the chat area, although not everybody is logged in either. That's typically how the case is. If you don't have a YouTube or Google account and email that you're able to do so with, then by all means, it only takes a couple minutes, and it's a great way of connecting with people all around the world, folks that you would not necessarily normally ever have come into contact with. And I know that we're having a great time here forming a small virtual community via WPRPN, World Pirate Radio Podcast Network, the People's Pirate Network, and the flagship that we have in place here, Pirate Radio Podcasts. The Robin Hood, of course, is what we sail out upon these high digital, all too intrepid waters with each and every week. We missed this past Tuesday, just once again because of the transition that was in our midst as far as working and getting the technical end of things more in place here, with Windows in particular had to be brought on board one of our machines, and there's a lot that goes into that as far as configuration of platforms and software and all various programs and the like. So really had our hands full. But yeah, great you could make it. We are looking forward to this. Once again, if you do have any thoughts, comments, questions regarding Lennon, either leave them with us via the YouTube chat area or call in. Pirate1radio@gmail.com is the way that you're able to contact us. Just looking at the quote right now, the really famous quote that got John into so much hot water, the more popular than Jesus controversy. You know, I did come across the actual context to which he presented that. It really was quite something. I believe, I'm not sure, Larry, if you know anything about this, or maybe Jim, but supposedly he had said that essentially Christianity was on the way out. It, or maybe churchianity would be another way of putting things. That was his thought. That was his view of things and take on the world at the time. You know, clearly, well, I don't know if anyone has anything to say about that. You know, Larry, you probably remember being a young teenager.
I do remember.
Sure. Let's hear about that.
Well, I think he said it kind of offhand. Like, God, we're more popular than Jesus, you know? Like an exclamation. And of course, they were surrounded by reporters and they all grabbed onto it and it became a huge controversy. And then he started to defend it by saying, well, you know, the churches are decreasing in popularity and we're increasing. And that just made the churches madder. So they burned Beatle records. They started burning Beatle records. And in the South, in Alabama, you know, some of the more Baptist states, red states, they kind of had these rallies where they'd burn Beatle albums because they were mad at John Lennon. And Lennon later became, you know, an atheist. You know, he might have been an agnostic, but really his music um, pointed to atheism. You know, imagine there's no heaven. You know, and God is a concept by which we measure our pain. I love that line, and it's very true in a lot of circumstances. It's not always true in all circumstances, but in many circumstances, it is true that God is used to measure the pain we go through. Um, uh, God is also kind of used as a wish book. I mean, people try to control God to get their own way, which I always laugh at. But um, yeah, I mean, people. I think they took it out of context. The Beatles were young. They were from a working class neighborhood. They'd never seen anything like that. The crowds that were coming, the girls that were screaming, and they, it was just a comment like, "Wow, we're more popular than Jesus." And then, the press just glommed onto it, and it was like hate the Beatles for a while. But I think people like their music. They like to listen to John Lennon. He had a lot to say, whether he was an atheist or not. He still had a lot to say.
Sure. Did you ever get a chance to see him or any of the other living
I
Beatles
saw
perform?
Paul McCartney in concert,
Yeah. When was that?
and that was like it had to be, late '90s. I guess it was late '90s.
Uh huh. How was the
And it
show?
was like the Del Mar Fair. He put on the best show. He just loves getting on stage. He loves the music. He loves to perform. He loves the audience. I mean, you can really feel it. Paul is like a true blue musician, just can't put it down, you know, just loves to do it.
You're not one of these fall believers, are you?
The what? Oh, no. Mm.
The fake Paul that he was
Yeah.
replaced back in, was it 1966?
But I know that Elvis was spotted a couple of times.
Yeah. Well, they met Elvis on one occasion and one
Yeah,
time
they did.
only. Yeah, there was a lot of jamming that ended up taking place. Although at first when they came in, they just were so taken aback that all they did was sit or stand there and stare at him without saying anything. He and to the point where he said, "Well, look, guys, if we're not gonna do anything here, have a conversation, or at least maybe jam a little bit, I might as well just go to bed."
Uh,
And that's what they
I've
ended up
been
doing was jam. And then one of the Beatles said, jam. Somebody say jam, and that's when they all got
mm,
into it. And Paul was really impressed with his. Elvis was sitting there on the couch playing bass to
ah,
the Mohair Sam was the song that Charlie Rich actually
oh,
made
yeah.
famous. It's a really cool tune. If anyone gets a chance to check out Mohair Sam, he was there. Just think about him playing like the bass lines to the that tune. Really cool. Go ahead, Princess. You're going to jump in there and say something.
I'm just amazed. I've been looking at his Wikipedia page and I'm just amazed at how much he did in life.
Yeah,
Um,
hugely
I don't think
prolific.
I ever looked it up, but I mean, he was in documentaries. He was a producer, a director, a writer. Um, I'm just amazed.
40, 40 long years, I guess, in some ways, although really clearly cut down right in his prime, just as Double Fantasy had made it out to the public and was climbing in the charts. And it is, if anyone gets a chance, if they haven't heard the album, by all means, definitely check it out. It's quite a way to go. He really knocked it out of the park there, most definitely. So yeah, uh, it's a really great album. And who knows? After we wrap up, I might go and listen to the whole thing straight through, right from the get go. But I don't know about where were you? where, I mean, do you want to get into the whole business of his murder and really assassination is what it came down to? I think in many ways that there was perhaps a hidden hand, that this Chapman character, if you look at him, he is
Oh
so
yeah,
spaced
he's in
out.
Kyoto. Yeah, he's in Kyoto for sure.
Well, do you know the story about the doorman at the Dakota, Jose Perdomo?
No, it's fuzzy. It's fuzzy in my memory.
You've never heard that what's going on with him and his what him and Chapman were up to on the day of the murder?
Oh
Apparently,
no, I didn't hear that. No.
they were outside. Perdomo apparently just so happened to be part of the Bay of Pigs operation. And look up
Gee
Operation
whiz.
40, folks. Operation 40. And isn't that something that John Lennon, with his life being cut so short as it was 40
Yeah.
years of age? But Perdomo, yeah, really quite
Oh yeah, if he's a Bay
something.
of Pigs Cuban, that was a whole CIA operation. There's a dead giveaway right there.
Yeah. So we could maybe share that link with people out there in the audience, of course. Leave it as part of the show notes. But the two of them, Chapman and the doorman Perdomo, hard to pronounce, that they had been talking because Chapman had been hanging around the Dakota pretty much all day, and
Mm.
he was talking. They were talking about the Kennedy assassination and the Bay of Pigs. I guess that's what was on. That was the discussion, the focus for the day. You know, so that
And
says
didn't
something if that
Chapman
was the
get
case.
John Lennon's autograph just the day before?
Well, it was either that's right. Yeah, I guess it would have been the evening before, perhaps. It sounds about right. Yeah, and there's a picture. We got it in the slideshow. There was gosh, I wish I could remember the name of the fellow who took the picture. There were pictures of him and Lennon taken together, the photographer. But it's just a really really famous photo, of course. So it's part of a slideshow that actually a good friend of ours put together as part of a musical video tribute and a song that he wrote. Johnny Canuck actually is who we're talking about here. And he has got this song that we're going to play later. We're going to cue it up. We would have loved to have played more Beatles or Lennon music, but of course most people know how YouTube is with those things, that they immediately shut
Oh
you
yeah.
down,
Oh yeah.
demonetize, or just if it's a Bob Dylan song, Sony, and I'm not sure who's more responsible, if it's Sony or Bob himself.
Columbia.
They have it banned
Columbia.
worldwide. You're shut down,
Yeah.
so nobody can see your video at all, just because you played one of his songs, But most
Yeah.
others will just have it so that you're demonetized. But count your age by friends, not by years. Count your life by smiles, not tears. John Lennon apparently did say that,
Yeah.
supposedly. I
Yeah.
don't know. Where's that from? Is that one of his songs? I don't know.
No, it's just a little poem he wrote.
Huh.
And there were a lot of like amazing lyrics that he did. I mean, he was an amazing lyricist. One of the most honest, talents out there as far as opening up himself, his path to enlightenment and back down from the mountain, back down from the magical mystery tour, wiping out every kind of ego that he had. So it just became his pure self, and I think he was able to show the world that before they assassinated him. I'd love to see where he'd be at now, but I'm kind of afraid he'd be on the side of Antifa and the rioters.
Yeah, that was something I was thinking about myself, actually. Really wonder. Although, that was 40 years ago, and he would have been right out there continuing to protest on the front lines. I'm quite confident.
Oh, yeah.
This is a lot of people talked about this with the Reagan administration and nuclear weapons.
Yep.
With the Cold War with Russia, and of course, let's not forget the FBI. I mean, he had a pretty
Lengthy dossier. Yeah.
considerable. Yeah.
J. Edgar Hoover didn't like the Beatles all that much.
No, I wouldn't think so. No, not.
He thought they were communist.
Yeah, good old faggy Freemason
Yeah.
cross-dressing Hoover. What a freak that guy was.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, no wonder Comey doesn't think he's so bad.
Yeah, well, compared to Hoover, absolutely, sure.
J. Edgar, yeah.
Jeez. Oh, well, and he was just so corrupt too. We don't want to get too sidetracked, but the money, the public funds that he absconded with, I think that's the right word, just made use of with renovations around his house and interior, exterior. That was just one of the things that is well documented. And then, of course, his mob connections to the point where he had no idea that there was a mafia for the longest time for some reason. He just had no concept. He had blackmail on every politician in Washington, but as far as the other forms of organized crime, it just didn't seem to click with him. So and there is a lot of speculation, talk that Hoover, there was the mob had blackmail material on Hoover himself.
Oh yeah,
which was just in the photographs is what we'd be talking about, where he was performing certain sexual acts.
Whatever, yeah.
Yeah, so there we go. But enough of that creepy old toad or
I mean,
turd.
You compare that guy to John Lennon, who was like, his life was an open book. I mean, J. Edgar, his life was like, secret, buried, in the closet.
To rob people of their freedoms and liberties, too. You can't do that. Why? Well, because I said so. I'm not going to let you. Or if you do, I'm going to punish you. Why? Because I am the state. So I'm sorry, Larry. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're right. You're right.
It's really...
Life hurts, pass it on, That's what they do.
I'm sorry, who passes what on?
Life hurts, pass it on, That's what they do. But they get to this place where J. Edgar Hoover was, where he was corrupt. I mean, he had a secret life, but he, as you said, he had the goods on congressmen, senators, district attorneys, anybody that was anybody. He dug dirt up on them, and he kept files on them, and they had to vote his way. Yeah, he was one tough bird, that one.
Right.
And compared to John Lennon, Lennon was an angel. It's like they assassinate the wrong people. I don't like anything that's violent, but given the nature of the way things are, they're just doing it all wrong, Jeffy.
Right. So, has anyone heard much about the 80th birthday commemorations or celebrations? I looked into it a little bit before we went live here, and because of course Corona, things are taking a more virtual sort of shape, unfortunately. But
Yoko's doing something.
Well, she's not in the best of health right now. I'm not sure if you're aware of that or not, but she's, of course, she was John Sr. by about 7 years, at least, almost 10, not quite. Yeah. And he did, let's not forget, refer to her as mother. And he lost his mother at a very young age. So that is something to take into consideration. And I'm not, I'm on the fence with Yoko, as a lot of people are, to be quite honest, and that there's a lot of things that happened Well, first of all, you got to look at her history, where she came from. She was pretty much like Japanese royalty.
Sumitomo Bank.
Yeah.
Sumitomo Bank.
What was the name of the
And
bank?
Sumitomo.
And her family ran the bank.
They owned it.
Yeah. I mean, so
Yeah.
that's
And then Linda McCartney was Linda Eastman Kodak.
right. Well,
It
that was
Eastman
a
Bank.
happy. I think they were a little. See, John was actually what reports that I've come across actually during the last sessions that he did during that period in time is that he was in the midst of dumping her once again, kind of a separation. And let's not forget the first time they were apart. Speak of the devil, there she is popping up on the slideshow. That she hand selected May Pang
Right.
to be John's girlfriend, and a lot of people think that's mostly so that she would have somebody to basically keep an eye on John, who would report back to her on.
They both did heroin together, May Pang and Don.
Oh, I didn't know they did that, but
She wasn't good for him.
May Pang. I don't know. May Pang did smack. Are you serious? Come on.
Yeah, that's what I've seen. And then he would go back to Yoko to try to get clean, to try to clean up his act and be a father.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So he was into smack though before.
Oh, before her.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
definitely. He might have gotten her into smack, but they were in the West Coast, doing smack.
That's what that makes a little more sense. And they saw a UFO together too. Let's not forget. I think it was Walls and Bridges album. There's even some mention of that on the back cover. Really quite something with that whole experience. 1975, I believe it was. He talked about it. People can see. Check out. There's a picture right now. We're looking at the famous autograph. That he signed there for his soon-to-be assassin, Mark David Chapman. That'll be coming up in the slideshow in just a moment or two with folks. So, but yeah, the whole Lost Weekend business, 5 long years, I guess. Quite a haze. But a lot of people talk about that end of things, but he was very productive as well too, is what folks don't realize. He was writing a lot of songs. He wasn't just going out and boozing it up all the time with his good drinking buddy Harry Nilsson, who a lot of people have talked about being. There's been a lot of mention regarding who is the fifth Beatle, right? So that's one candidate, Harry Nilsson. There's some collaboration that took place between the two of them over the time they spent together. So I think he ended up drinking himself to death, probably not too long after John was killed, actually. So, but yeah, let's take a look at the comment section here. We see what people are getting into. I don't know if has anyone seen much relating directly to John, the history of the Beatles, of course, this the whole business of fall and so forth. Let's give a shout out here though to On the Fence. Go ahead. Okay. Go ahead.
I was looking up 80 birthday celebrations. I found something that said Tame Impala or Tommy Impala's Kevin Parker commemorates John Lennon's birthday with an acoustic cover. And if you go to the Instagram post, there's like 170,312 likes on him sitting down and playing the guitar on his bed. He looks like John Lennon.
Oh, right on. Willie Nelson and his sons did a great cover version of Watching the Wheels Go Round. We might have the link here we can make available to folks. We'll see if we can. Yeah, there it is. So we will share this with our audience momentarily. Yeah, that's the sort of thing that I guess that can happen. That's right. So, with social media, it's one of the things I was thinking about. It's like a double-edged sword, basically. frankly, and we've looked at, and weighed our options, the implications of, being out there for the public. And that's what John was, as Larry was getting at, with his life being pretty much an open book. There were some things which are a little lesser known as far as the private life that he and Yoko shared during their time at the Dakota, most definitely. But this is one of the risks that you run and that you have to contend with, whether it's you're the world's biggest rock star or just somebody in social media, that when you put yourself out there so that there is, there's just too many crazy people, frankly, that whether they're trolls or they have mental issues, it's like, what's the point? And that's the thing, is there's even some speculation that Lennon sold his soul for his fame. There's a whole book on that business, and with alleged quotes and the like. So who really knows what the truth of the matter is there exactly? There's some really weird synchronicity with the Beatles, though, as well, too, with numerology, number 9, number 9, number 9, and things like that. So I don't know what to say other than congratulations to the young fellow musician. Presuming he's I'm not sure how old he is, but the cover version of what tune was it? Like I said, Willie and his boys covered "Watching the Wheels Go Round," and it is really, really great. It's this impromptu interpretation of the song, and really well done. But what was the song that this other musician character covered, sitting there just in his on his bed with he's managed to pick up all that traction? Is it like Imagine, or what are we talking about exactly? Did we lose Princess Jaybird Wells? Maybe she doesn't know.
No, I don't know. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, keep scouring around. Keep looking to see what you can come up with as far as stories are concerned, or any items of interest. We're going to share that link right now to the.
Yeah, I sent you the link.
Okay, well, share it in the YouTube chat is another way of doing things. So we've got the other one there, of course, and encourage everyone else to contribute likewise if they come across anything of note or interest. But where were people? Hey, listen, we haven't heard too much from Reverend Jim. Were you a fan at all, Jim? Do you continue to be a fan to this day? Did your parents cover any Beatles song? Obla Di, Obla Da? Life goes on. So
I don't know that my dad. I don't think they might have. Well, they might have played one or two Beatles songs, but that'd be about it. But yeah, I liked the Beatles growing up. I had older brothers and sisters, and so yeah, and we watched the Beatles cartoon on Saturday and all that good stuff. Do you remember the Beatles cartoon?
It's funny you should mention that. I've just recently downloaded pretty much everything I could get my hands on via archive.org. I would encourage everyone who is a supporter of open-sourced technology, content, and the like to drop by archive.org. You never know when these things are just going to go away. But they've got a lot of great material over there, and radio shows that are put together largely out of the Berkeley, San Francisco Bay Area, and I could actually get a hold of the link to where a lot of the material I recently came across, where that was originated from, but maybe not right now exactly. Yeah, it's funny you should ask, because I haven't taken a look and watched the cartoons to this point. I'm looking forward to it, and they were out there as a kid, weren't they? Even though, see, I was living up in the central interior of British Columbia at the time growing up. We had one channel, which was, I think, CBC. This is as a kid of 7 years old, up to about 7, maybe 10 or something like that. And then we got a second channel, CTV, which was more like Toronto, Vancouver content. And so that's really quite interesting as far as it's relatively primitive compared to what was happening down the States at that time. We're talking the mid to late 70s, early 80s. We made a move out of town. My dad, who's a denturist, we got a bigger house, actually, nice place out of town, just a few miles out in the country. A lot of room to roam with dirt bikes and all that sort of thing. I had to save up to buy the dirt bikes. It wasn't like they were just given to us. We had to buck wood and head out with our wagons and roam the ditches for bottles, as well as go and knock on as many neighbors' doors as we could manage to save up for the dirt bike. But we're talking 1980. This is around the time I would have been 10, or actually, was it 11? 10 or 11 at that particular time. And we had a satellite dish is what came on board there. That was just right at the time satellite dishes were making their way into the public sphere. And they're not like they are now. These are like pretty fair-sized ones, of course, so we mounted out in the backyard. And that opened us up, helped us to become exposed to a whole new world of just utter insanity, really, seeing the larger picture to what was actually taking place out in the wider, sphere of things. So that's probably where we first, as I recall, had some exposure to the Beatles cartoons and MTV. That was during the early days, origins and start of MTV, Much Music, and it was just a great time to be alive and have a chance to experience all the great music that was coming to us during that period, So, but the Beatles, the death of Lennon in particular, December 1980. I had been a fan for a number of years already. Pretty sure about that. When we were kids, we made these improvised little guitars, if you want to call them that. They were rulers, like that you use as an elementary school kid to measure things. And rulers with elastic bands on them. So, but we also made little kind of guitar body cutouts that we glued onto the back, and it was great. Just around that period in time, and I was already writing songs actually, so quite interested in the whole thing with the Beatles and Elvis, and then even later within the next few years, Bob Dylan. That his music really managed to resonate with me in a big way. I guess just because he was so much different from what was out in the mainstream at that particular time, and he was a really accomplished songwriter. Say what you want of the guy's singing voice, which I do believe he's a very capable singer. He's got his own unique way of doing things, but he knows how to carry a tune. It's not like he's singing flat or anything like that. I have hardly ever heard him hit a bad note. So it's just that he's got his own particular unique style and manner of voicing, as far as I can tell. But yeah, I remember lying up, being awake in bed the night that the news came across CBC radio, because even to this day I still quite often will go to bed with things like podcasts and the like on rotation. So it's it's a habit that I got onto quite early. A lot of old time radio shows, the Shadow, and I think it was called the CBS Mystery Hour, or something along those lines. They'd have these suspense type, hour thrillers that were put out there for people's listening pleasure and interest. But it was quite a shock, and just one of those things, like with the Kennedy assassination, and it hit me and it's stuck with me to this day. Obviously, that's something that I will never forget about, frankly, and I don't see any reason why I should. Similar to the passing of, although it wasn't quite as awful, George Harrison. When he died, Ken Kesey was another big one. Although I had the chance to actually meet Ken, if you want to call it that, back in 1999 out in Edinburgh. It was the Fringe Festival. I just happened to be touring through the city and managed to land a chance opportunity to ride on the Pranksters. Well, what would they call it? I guess it was Further was the name of the bus, of course. So that was a bit of a fluke. But Kesey himself, proved very aloof and elusive, not almost like a J.D. Salinger type character in some ways, not overly, depending on who he was dealing with, I suppose, overly friendly or personable. But I don't know. This is the thing, is like, we're all here to go, and the fact is that we can never truly say when or how, under what sort of circumstances that's going to be, whether it's a car crash or a plane going down, maybe a heart attack. It could be a sudden onset of a really awful disease. It's just really hard to say, of course, but the fact is, I don't know, with Lennon himself, the legacy that he left. We went to school. The teacher that we had, and I think I was in about grade 6 or 7. I guess it was one of the two. 7 out. We had this little kind of elementary school out in the country that we attended. Our teacher was kind of hip though, and kind of a cutie too. It was nice, refreshing to have her work with us. She was out of Toronto, as a matter of fact. So she was really traumatized by the whole business of John's passing, and she was good enough to actually, because we did have a musical portion to the lessons that we partook in, shall we say, or that were presented to us, part of the program, I suppose, the itinerary they had produced and wanted us to be exposed to. But she herself just freely chose Beatles music. I'm not sure if we'd been listening to Beatles music up to that point or not. May have been like a little of that, perhaps Cat Stevens. what have you. Mostly, though, it was all about musical appreciation. That's what we were there to do, frankly. So that was really great, both from the standpoint of melody as well as the lyrics. And with Lennon's death, yeah, I think we might have had a couple lessons where we took a pretty close look at double fantasy, things like watching the wheels go round. Beautiful, 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 beautiful boy. You know, there's I think, is it called, Darling Sean, Beautiful Boy? And I'd have to take a look at the track list, actually, to see what was actually a part of the album. Does anyone else remember the what was available as far as the songs on Double Fantasy were concerned? There was, bloody hell, there were some real great tunes, though. But yeah, Watching the Wheels, definitely remember that. We covered, it's going all the way back to grade 7. And apologies, too. People can maybe hear my voice becoming a little strained. Don't know what exactly it was or why this
I
would
thought
be.
it sounded good.
Well, yeah, well, I got a bit of a cold. Coming down with a bit of a cold is what the deal is here. So I'm just like a bit of a frog in my throat is what it feels like. So a little hoarse. So not quite a pony, but a little hoarse. And
I
yeah.
thought it was good.
Oh, geez, you got to love those puns, huh? Those are the worst kind of jokes. you're not a stand-up comedy, which trust me, I am not. I would love to be, but it's just I just don't have the just don't have that skill, unfortunately. Speaking of which, Lennon himself. Let's look at this guy, because I mean, he was a card. He was just he was a real wit, and someone who was just so bright, so sharp, and had so much to offer. And he did give a lot, of course, as do most artists. They give a lot of themselves, whether people stop to appreciate that or not. I don't know. In some ways, I guess you could say it cost him his life, made him a target for this whole, what I really think in so many ways. I think Old Man Bush, actually, Skull and Bones, Bush 41, could quite have easily had a hand in things. I mean, just look at the Reagan assassination attempt, which I think that took place the next year. So maybe they'd road tested this Manchurian mind controlled assassin business already. Of course, it can be done. Darren Brown has proven this quite clearly for the whole world to see. Anyone who's taken the time to check out, he's a magician, British magician, and hypnotist. And that's exactly what he did. People check out Darren Brown, The Assassin, I think is what it's called, Manchurian Candidate Assassin episode. That's another item which maybe, Princess, you can track down there from your end perhaps. Share it with folks in the listening audience out on YouTube, or I don't know if Jim would have the time. Darren Brown.
What was it you wanted?
Yeah, Darren Brown, The Assassin, I think is what it's called. And it's just one of the episodes. He's a mentalist and a hypnotist, along with, he does a lot of other card magic and that whole business too. So very, very accomplished talent, of course. So, but to show that, people wonder, gee, can this really be done? Well, that's quite easily. All you need is the right person who is susceptible and, quite easily shaped and influenced to the point where they do these sort of crazy things. And don't forget, like Chapman himself, he did talk about these almost like schizophrenic voices, the voice of God, even during, I was just looking at that before we went live here, this whole business of how he was, before he entered his plea of guilty, it's claimed in the courtroom to have heard the voice of God tell him that he was to enter a plea of guilty. So, but here's on top of this, he was part of a CIA cutout operation people want to look into Chapman's background, where he was overseas for some time, working as part of this phony Christian charity relief organization, which so many of these outfits are, of course. And when I say cutout, I mean that it was a front group, basically, for the CIA. What the hell? It's still active to this day. That's another item that Jaybird you could track down with the right keyword search via DuckDuckGo, was what I would encourage you or anyone else to do. Google is not really our friend. If we can help it, we try to be as free and independent of them as possible. I know it's kind of tough here with the live streaming end of things, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. There's a lot more we could say about that, but maybe it's best I kind of rest my voice for a few minutes here, guys and girls, and let the rest of you take over. I'm sure you've got a few things you'd like to say regarding the Beatles and Lennon's legacy, of course. Just imagine if he would have lived to have been with us today, and we could actually have celebrated with him in person. That I think he would have had such an impact on the world and people's consciousness, to the point where he clearly already had, and yet he remained a divisive figure, because there are people out there, even to the present time where we currently find ourselves, 2020, living in the future, folks. People had their issues with the guy. I hear somebody's rustling around there in the background. I'm not sure if that's Jaybird or it might be Jaybird. We'll get you muted out there. It's okay. Take care of that here from this end, and not really worry about it. So hopefully you can unmute yourself when necessary. But I don't know, Larry, do you want to tackle that one, or maybe Jim? I'm just going to, like I said, take a bit of a break, maybe see what we got happening over on Facebook. I didn't get much of a chance to share any links or content via our groups, unfortunately, is what I like to do, nor Discord. So if I could take a few minutes to have a crack at that, that'd be really, really quite wonderful, much appreciated. Either of you guys want to jump in? Oh, hang on. There we go. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Larry.
Well, Jim can kick it off. Are you there, Jim?
Yeah, I'm here, but I was going to say, go ahead, buddy. Handle it. Oh, I'm here for backup.
So I think, one of the things that intrigued me was really the kind of battle, quote unquote, between the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. So every time the Beatles would put out an album at a certain point in their, in their repertoire, the Rolling Stones would put out an album to kind of mimic and jest. And it was like the Beatles were selling love, it was like All You Need Is Love. That was a John Lennon song. And I don't know, the Rolling Stones were selling what do you, what do you do when you get kicked to the curb by these women, or like they, put out songs like Under My Thumb and Don't Want to Be Your Beast of Burden. So the Stones were kind of jabbing at the Beatles, back and forth. The Beatles put out a White Album, and the Stones put out a White Album, but it was called Beggar's Banquet. So it was kind of interesting. The thing I loved about John Lennon, I think, was his honesty in his music. I mean, especially in his lyrics. I was thinking of the song they did, No Reply, you know, and this happened once before, you know, when I saw through your door, um, you know, you were there and they said it wasn't you, but I saw you peek through your window. I saw the light, you know, that's like amazing, you know, kind of boyfriend, girlfriend kind of tunes and lyrics that, you know, young people in those days, they really didn't know like how to approach each other, boyfriend and girlfriend. And the Beatles kind of gave us that, you know. Um, and you know, the music was so like I don't know, innocuous over time that it even became children's music. I mean, parents played the Beatles for their kids. So you know, cuckoo, cuckoo. I am a walrus. But then in his solo albums, he stripped everything down. It was like piano and guitar, and most of it was acoustic. Um, and you know, he did songs like "Mother," "Mother, You Had Me, but I Didn't Have You," you know, which was you know his I guess tip of the hat to Freud. But it also led into like this primal scream at the end of the song. So he had gone through primal scream therapy, and a bunch of us crazy people, you know, went through same kind of primal scream therapy. Some of us crazier people did it on LSD. Um, it's interesting that Bob Dylan said that John Lennon was the first one that gave him a joint, turned him on to pot. So the Beatles turned Bob Dylan on to marijuana.
No, you got that backwards, Larry.
No. Oh yeah. Maybe it was Bob Dylan that turned John Lennon
Correct.
on.
And I'll tell you the story. Here's the deal. They met. It was during one of their first tours, I guess, in New York, '64, I think, if to approximately '65, maybe at the latest. And what was it? Oh God, why is the song not coming to me? I can't hide. I can't hide. Oh yeah, I'll tell you something. I guess it's I wanna hold your hand. I
Right.
can't hide. I can't hide. But Dylan's listening to it. He's like giving them the dope and the weed and
Oh,
joint, and they were kind of like a little bit taken aback because even though they'd done a lot of pills, uppers, methamphetamines, the
yeah.
same sort of things that the the Nazis had flown on, or just as soldiers through World War II. It's starts with a P, Petrovin, something along those lines. Those I think they were like little pill like poppers that the popular in the West during the Beat Generation. I mean Kerouac and those guys, Ginsberg, they were Burroughs. They were doing those things like they were going out of style, I guess. So, anyways.
Okay.
But so they were because the Hamburg was where they came out of, right? Like the Beatles spent a lot of time in Hamburg, like a good
And
year or two, and they really had their eyes open to a lot of things there that they had not
okay.
seen in Liverpool. I know you're talking about the innocence of you hit on a great point there, the way that with young teenage people, how they're able to relate to one another, all those crazy hormones bouncing around and so forth. But they had weed. They thought was a really kind of like heroin or something. They had in their mind this is a total reefer madness sort of mentality. They hadn't seen any of that really at all in Hamburg, amazingly. So, Ringo. Well, here's the thing: is that with "I Want to Hold Your Hand," Dylan's like, "What? You guys got a problem with this? Like, what about your song that I want to hold your hand? I get high, I get high, I get high." That's what he thought they were saying. It's "I get high, I get high." It's really "I can't hide." So it just goes to show how lyrics can be misheard. Ringo apparently was the first Beatle though who said, "Oh hell, I'll give it a shot," because Dylan, of course, is telling him, "It's not going to kill you, man. It'll give you a good buzz and you'll feel great." So yeah, that was and this everything from there is history. Of course, they went and were sure to. They got the wet towels. I'm not sure how I guess people that have done this in the past, you don't want the smell to sneak or sift out, find its way, creeping out into the hallways. Any potential narcs or whatever on the prowl outside. But they would get these wet towels and just stuff them along the bottom of the doors so that it could be avoided. And the rest is history, man. They had a great time, I guess, and there you go. So that's my understanding. But sorry for jumping in there, Larry. I had to just set the record straight. So I'm pretty sure
I'm glad you did. You filled out the whole story for me. I really appreciate that, Joey. I'll let Jim have the ball for a minute.
Jim's got the talking stick. Talking stick.
I just finished partaking in a little bit of what we were just talking about.
You're smoking some of Bob Dylan's weed?
Well, not Bob Dylan's, but this particular strain is called Wicked Stepmother.
So that's perfect. Yeah. Speaking of Yoko Ono,
Wicked Stepmother.
It suits the moment.
And,
Mother.
It's quite a kicker. Yeah, I've grown up watching the cartoon. I don't know how many of you seen it. I mean, I'm 60, so I'm probably older than a lot of our audience. But Ringo was always made out to be a complete goof in the cartoons. And I always thought, why did he agree to that? I mean, yeah, I know each one has their little role to play, but he agreed to play just the total doofus, and he's actually a very talented musician. So I mean, I don't know. Even in their movies, he was kind of the off-kilter one, I guess you might say. And I don't know. I there's little weird things like that. The cartoon was good though. They played a lot of their music, and they played Hard Day's Night a lot, it seemed. But I couldn't tell you who wrote which songs. I know that between George Harrison and John Lennon, and Ringo wrote a few. Yeah, I liked their music, but not enough to, my brothers had the albums, so I never owned any, and never thought about once you get older and stuff, well then, like my music collection is basically vacant of a lot of the stuff my older siblings had, because I never bothered to get a copy for myself. You think about things like that as you get older. It's a little late though, by then. Well, actually, you can't. Go ahead.
I was a little girl when he was murdered, so I wasn't even older than 2. So Ringo was my favorite. My dad listened to the Beatles a lot. That was his favorite music, and my mom made him get rid of it because it wasn't religious. But I started listening to the Beatles when I was old enough to start researching what my dad used to listen to. Ringo was my favorite mainly because of the eye opening of that caveman movie. I forgot to look up what the name of it was, but my own kids, my son watched it during chemo. That was one of his favorite movies. That song that Ringo danced and sang to around the campfire was constantly in my house. I can't tell you how many times we watched that movie with Ringo because of that song. That's my experience with the Beatles.
Very cool. Hey, listen, we're going to cue up a song, actually, that a good friend of ours, Johnny Canuck, penned a number of years ago. We'll get everyone to mute out. If you want to listen to it, you can check it out via YouTube, but make sure you are muted. And it's called Walking on Thin Ice. It's one that he, I guess, tried to have made more public, so that people could hear it, of course. And I don't know if it's actually managed to reach the likes of either Yoko, Julian, or Sean. Unfortunately, Cynthia, John's first wife, passed away just a number of years ago. But it's a demo. It's an indie demo that Johnny put together and recorded a number of years back. He's got a video for it up on Vimeo as well too, which people might want to check out. We'll be sure to add that link to the show description area after we wrap things up, along with, of course, what people are able to access up on BitChute. But yeah, it's well worth listening to, I would say, and we've chosen to share it with folks out there this week. Thought that it would be appropriate, so check it out. Let us know what you think on the flip side. Walking on Thin Ice.
He called home, walked the streets, people left him alone. Coming up for air, waiting to exhale from long lost weekend fog, his 5-year tale. John had gone cold turkey, and ironic fact, finally got it together clean. States people left him alone.
There we go. Walking on Thin Ice. A tribute written by Johnny Canuck a number of years back. Something, we should get him on the show actually at some point here in the future if we can manage to book him. I know he's pretty busy touring out there. Usually the western part of Canada is where he tends to spend most of his time hitting the summer festival circuit, as it is. But it would be great to reconnect with him and see what he has to say regarding these little indie demos that he puts together from time to time. I don't know if anyone here on board right now had a chance to hear the song. Hopefully people listening did appreciate the effort, of course. So I think a little more could be done as far as polish is concerned. What he did tell me about the tune, though, is that in his mind's eye, he did envision Elton John covering it. He hears, for some reason, he can clearly hear Elton John doing a wicked version of the tune. I think in listening to it myself, I can see where he's coming from, and that it could very well stand to be if Sir Elton was to embark on this journey, take the task upon him, that it could very well end up being even a more, I think, powerful musical production than Candle in the Wind. Mostly because he knew Princess Diana personally, but he knew John quite well too, from what I understand. They even performed together back in, 1974? Whatever gets you through the night. All right. And what else did they do? Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. I don't know. Did anyone else hear the concert that he and Elton performed at? I guess it was Madison Square Gardens, 1974. I'm not sure what was on tap that night musically, other than the few tunes that I just mentioned. But yeah, they had quite the history, and I think Elton would do a pretty damn decent rendition of what the songwriter Johnny Canuck has recorded for us, and we just, of course, had that chance to listen to and to hear Walking on Thin Ice, which for any Beatles fans, people that have followed the John Lennon story, will know that just so happens to be the song that he had on his person, in his jacket, at the very time of his assassination, when he was shot by Chapman. The tapes fell out of his jacket, and I guess it's kind of scattered about on the ground. So it turned out that Yoko did quite the tune itself turned out to be quite popular. There was a various number of dance mixes and the like. So if you listen to it, it really is quite haunting. John, at the time working together with Yoko too, did recognize that he, because of his ear, he knew what songs worked and what did not. Quite often, more often than not, presumably. But he did from what I understand, say to her that the song was going to be quite successful for her, as it indeed did, turn out to be. There's more I'd like to say actually about his relationship with Yoko in the final days too. There's a little that was mentioned earlier regarding how, she did not like him even ordering and eating cheeseburgers. So when he got together with the guys in the studio, though, he did everything he could to keep the fact that they were ordering, fast food, have concealed from Mother, who presumably would lecture him and guilt trip him, the whole business of eating cheeseburgers and rather than I guess sushi. So there was also interesting too. There was a hypnotism session that after, speaking of Darren Brown, hypnotism, people who are quite easily susceptible to such things, and those who are not. That's how the story goes, at least. That John, when Yoko and the two of them decided that he would be coming back from May Pang. In fact, that was the pretext that, come on back and, got this great hypnotist here for you who will help you stop smoking. So apparently that's what she did. She had this person on board. Who it was exactly, I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if that information is out there or not. But he from all accounts and indications, was indeed hypnotized, but not in the sense that he had necessarily been led to believe would be the case. So there's some speculation that Yoko used this for more nefarious means, unfortunately. Who knows exactly. There was no doubt that she did have a certain power over him, but at the same time, around this period, right at the end of his life, that he was talking with the guys in the studio and presumably others, that he was not overly pleased with Mother, and was wanting to perhaps break free from her and go his own way. So that's definitely something worth taking into consideration, along with the fact that it just so happened that when he was shot and killed, she was not with him. He was trailing behind her by about a minute or so. 100 meters, 75 meters. They were not together hand in hand. That was not the case whatsoever. So just one of those coincidences again, or not. Another really kind of mean thing that she did was had him cremated, supposedly, his body, right after he died, was killed. And that was something that he did not want to do, actually. I'll say for the record right now that I'd be happy, really would prefer to be cremated. Look upon this body as just it's a vessel, a vehicle for, spirit needs to materialize, obviously. It's the material realm we're dealing with here, and needs to manifest in some way. So we take on a body, take on some form that we can abide within and work with. To what ends, I'm not really too sure, other than maybe liberation from the wheel of rebirth. John himself, very, of course, spiritual person, inquisitive, philosophical. And no doubt he was a seeker. So, but why she had him cremated is beyond me. She also hooked up real soon after his death with someone who was a bit of an insider at the Dakota, someone that she'd perhaps been sleeping with for a while on the side. Just kind of had a relationship with, his name escapes me, but he was, people that are more hardcore fans can easily, get to the bottom of this information if they so choose. Just to let people know, we have finally managed to get a few links out to Facebook here, a few John Lennon groups as well too, and Beatles. So we'll see where that takes us, if we manage to pick up any more traction here or not. But this stream, show number 203 of Pirate Radio Podcasts, pretty much improvised in the wake of this. Really wasn't a cancellation so much as we got, I think the expression is stood up by the guests that we had booked, unfortunately. Now, he might be having some personal issues. Sometimes people clearly forget. Not sure what the deal is there with Corbin. Corbin Godbout out of Eastern Canada. It's unfortunate, though. He himself, a fellow musician, was looking forward to having a conversation with the guy. So we'll see here. Hopefully, eventually manage to get to the bottom of things. He came to us via just a mutual friend, as I recall, and was simply someone who it had been suggested we get in touch with, or that reach out and contact us. So I think it was more the latter than anything, actually. His friend had wanted him to drop by and be a part of the Friday night feature end of things. But happy that we have managed to have this conversation, of course. Almost the bottom of the hour as far as recording time is concerned. Nearly 90 minutes, not quite. So we are entering the final stretch of the live stream as it is. Like to thank everyone for dropping by, of course, and participating in this week's live stream. I don't think we've gotten to these shout outs here, although now up to not quite a dozen people altogether who are curious as to see where things might go conversation wise. Some folks not logged in to the YouTube chat, but we do have the Global Enlightenment Radio Network, Barbecue Jim, Dana Shiver, Joey Boomer, Johnny Canuck, Jaybird Wells, On the Fence with Music, Jennifer Knight. Check this out. It was a journalist that introduced Bob to the Beatles when he offered the weed. Al Arnowitz. Yeah, that's right. 64. Correct. There we go. Thank you for that fact-checking, as it were, Jennifer. Now, she was a piece of work, says Tulips and Roses. Poor Julian, too. Hey, good day from Australia, mate. It's, what do they say? They don't, Australians, how's it, no, they don't say how's it going. How you going? How you going? How's it going? How are things? So, hey, great to make your virtual acquaintance. But there we go. I'm not sure what more else there is to say other than it is a milestone. The Buddha himself only lived to be 80 years. Although, why say only? It's a great milestone, and I think if I could myself live to that age, it would be quite something. People are lucky to make it to that point. Although in the West, even here in Korea, the average age of those people who pass away, both men and women, is as last time I checked, the information that was presented to me, it read something in the neighborhood of 80, 82, maybe 83. I guess it all depends on what kind of trouble you find yourself getting into, health-wise, or anything else, of course. So, do your best to steer clear of trouble. Not something that Lennon himself was overly adverse to, because, as we all know, he was a passionate individual, a principled person. It could be quite stubborn at times. Really dig his heels in when necessary, of course, but maybe for the right reasons, though, too, let's not forget. And there's no doubt that he really had mellowed, becoming a father. He was even, had becoming more responsible, I think, working on developing more of a relationship with Julian. And, of course, very happy to have Sean on board. So, but what's done is done. The memory lives on. The music will always be with us. It'll be with us for as long as we're here, and probably quite some time even after that. So, it's great that people like him and others come along, do what they can to leave their best mark. I guess he was a leader in some ways and a role model, even though he didn't necessarily like that role or that title. It's some people, what did Shakespeare say about how with greatness, the way some people are born into it, some people strive to achieve it, and others simply they find it having been thrust upon them, this business of greatness. So I don't know. I think it was could be a combination of all three with Lennon. He was born with that natural ability and talent, and he definitely did work to cultivate, striving to improve himself as a musician, his musical abilities, songwriting skills, honing those abilities, and then you could call it destiny, if you will, or karma. So I suppose it's really up to the individual what they're to make of things. That's great. He was with us for 40 years, though, and not a member of the 27 Club, thank God. Had the pleasure of living another 13 extra years. Very prolific and creative during that period. Even once again, the so-called it was about 5 lost years from 75 to 80, 74, 79. That once again, as we mentioned earlier, there may have been a lot of boozing and drugging and who knows what else going on. Some haziness to the picture, obviously, but at the same time, extremely productive, had those creative juices flowing and able to, to lay down a lot of demos and a lot of material that I think there's a famous, there was a vacation that he had in Jamaica right shortly before he returned in either 79 or early 1980, and a lot of songwriting taking place there. And he was pretty excited. He wanted to share that with Yoko. So, it was really great. Double fantasy. See the two of them work together and produce the great. It was a swan song, I suppose, is what you would call it, really. That it was a high note that he managed to go out on, but his life was cut short. George Harrison leaving us in, I guess it was 2001, if I'm not mistaken. Cancer, claiming his life. Right, not so long after, within a year or two of that, what would have been another assassination, although he and his wife did manage to fend off this crazed attacker, and they always seem to fit this this mold. They got this certain features, definitely crazed, and who knows exactly what was going on, what this guy could have been thinking. But as I recall, Harrison and his wife, Olivia, I believe her name is, beat this attacker off, not in any fun, pleasurable type way either. This is more serious stuff, folks. When it came to, having, people beating off or beaten off, that pretty serious business. And George was stabbed at least once or twice, to the point where it nearly cost him his life, unfortunately. It's something that I believe his son Danny and others around him, people that knew him well, feel that really weakened him. He was already in a pretty rough state as it was. So yeah, it's just a good thing that he and Olivia did manage to. It's amazing the way that this guy found himself able to slip by and evade security. I wonder if I wonder how much longer the security detail stayed on board or were part of the Harrison team. That's some definite explaining to do. So, anyways, the Double Fantasy is the fifth album by John Lennon and Yoko Ono, released in November 1980. This is a month right before his murder, on Geffen Records, of all things. David Geffen. Interesting. Quite the interesting character he is. Produced by Lennon, Ono, and Jack Douglas. It was the seventh and final studio album released by Lennon during his lifetime. The album marked Lennon's return to recording music full-time following his 5-year hiatus to raise his son, Sean. So there we go. Just looking for some of the track listing. If we can find what we got going on here, exactly as far as tunes are concerned. And pretty much once we do this, we're going to take things home here. One final shout out to our listening audience, of course. Just like Starting Over. Yes, let's not forget that one. Starting Over. Beautiful Boy. Watching the Wheels. Woman. Dear Yoko. Those are the tunes that definitely stand out. I'm losing you. Isn't that something? I'm losing you. So, there we go. All right. Leave the rest up to audience members, what they would like to do as far as further research or investigation of this whole business of whether or not his assassination was an inside job, something where Mark David Chapman would indeed fall into the category of a Manchurian type candidate killer, mind controlled. It's interesting. One of the first things that he did after shooting him, he was supposedly asked by a doorman, Perdomo, whose identity, get this, folks, the fact that Perdomo was there, who he was, his identity and the like, it was not reported on by mainstream media for at least the next 7 years. Not a peep, not a mention regarding Operation 40, Bay of Pigs, anything along those lines, nor the fact, allegedly, that he and Chapman had spent a lot of the day hanging out, spending time together, just shooting the breeze regarding Cuba, the Bay of Pigs, the Kennedy assassination, and the like. So, but, all right. I think we've pretty much reached the end of the road. Big shout out to folks who did tune in. We did just get an approval for a post in another Beatles group, so that's great. The Beatles here, there, and everywhere. We'll have to follow up on things here as well, too, when we get the BitChute item in place. Be sure to add that to the links that have been given the green light here by the admins, as it were. So, any final thoughts, closing comments, things that you would like to share with our listeners? Reverend Jim, Pirate Larry, Princess Jaybird Wells, you're all welcome to step up to the mic.
Thanks for having me. It was a blast, and happy birthday, John Lennon.
What's your favorite Beatles tune or John Lennon solo work? Anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, I was looking at the list, and I couldn't decide because they're all good.
Yeah, I could listen to his music all day. Although I do like to mix things up with other folks as well too, typically. But to really study and appreciate his music, I don't know, Jaybird, if you have any idea as to how music theory works, the structure of songs, chord changes, arrangement, and the like. But I think that with that, being the case, that people are able to gain a deeper appreciation and respect for the composers, who do manage to produce tunes, ditties, ballads, jigs, whatever the case may be, right? So,
No, some people don't know that different sounds affect different. I mean, just like different smells affect memories, different sounds affect memories, and not only that, but different sounds also bring out different emotions in people. And so that's probably the biggest thing of basic music theory is that, you want to pick sounds that emanate what you're trying to put in the music. You don't want to sing a sad song to Happy Birthday unless it's the Drudge fun, punny Happy Birthday song. But for the most part, different sounds affect people's emotions.
that's a great point. Yeah, absolutely. So, really, really great point, and well put. So you're, so right that the lyrics really, it is important for the melody and the lyrics to complement one another, and the music managing to become one. I suppose that's what makes these tunes more genuine and authentic. Yeah, so it would seem.
But I will say this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how fun it is to sing for Aliweta to your parrot?
Hilarious. Yeah. No, you have a parrot too, don't you?
I have 2 parrots.
Well, you totally qualify as a pirate lady then. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt.
Arr.
Yeah, you totally qualify. So, and speaking of which, etymology and the like, parrot and pirate, why are those 2 words so closely linked? There's something funny going on there. I have yet to track down the etymological, the history, the possible potential origins of that word, but I'm pretty confident there's something going on there. There's a reason, and what do you typically see in depicted in movies and the like? What kind of these birds that are perched on the pirate's shoulders? They're pirates, or parrots perched on the pirate's shoulder. Almost inevitably. You don't see a raven or a crow or a canary. It could be a canary, I suppose, if you really wanted to, but the parrot. So, and they're really great at coming up with all kinds of improv and mimicry, which
Well,
John Lennon, I mean, you talk about, just to bring things around kind of full circle, that was one of his, wordplay was one of his great fascinations and interests. That's what helped to keep him inspired and writing music, is my impression, you know. So, satire, parody. He was a big fan of Lewis Carroll. That's a well-known fact. Jabberwocky and the like. But you're going to say something?
all you said was that parrots do mimicry, and there's actually different breeds that are smarter than the others that they have some of the same intelligence as a human toddler. Um, I've got two different parrots. I've got an Amazon blue front, and then I've got a yellow crayon. And I'm not for certain, but I think the yellow crayon is dumber than the blue front on average. Um, but my blue front, he knows so much English, and he will not say it in front of strangers. The cartoons are correct. Um, and then he'll say a phrase at the perfect timing, like he told the horse "God bless you" after it sneezed twice, and we have never heard him say that phrase ever again. It was only when that horse sneezed. So he knows stuff, but he won't say it unless he wants to. So now the yellow Amazon, the yellow crayon, he's more into singing and whistling, but he can say the word hello better than the blue front Amazon. It's amazing what they know and what they don't let on that they know. And one of the things about parrots is they will adapt to different languages. So they actually have different dialects in their native area depending on which family they're from. Now, so you stick an Amazon with an American English speaking, and they'll pick up English. You stick them with Spanish, they'll pick up Spanish. So they pick up the language. They're very good learners, but they don't understand why you're arguing about politics. But they get the general toddler understanding. I could go on and on about parrots. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think how we can bring this around full circle to John Lennon. Maybe, I don't know if he ever had a parrot or if he ever dreamed of being a pirate. His father was a seaman and a bit of a... he abandoned John as a very young child, so they did not end up having the best relationship when father returned following his son's rise to fame, as it were, seeking some form of reconciliation perhaps, or what have you. Freddie Lennon, yeah. So he was just a no good for nothing. I shouldn't really say that's maybe a little too much, but he really, that's, why do you abandon your child like that, even if you are heading off to sea? That, yeah, and your wife too, for that matter. So, which, geez, I'm just trying to. What was his mother's name? He did the song. He wrote that song about her. For crying out loud. It's like Cynthia, no. Julia? Was it Julia? Yeah, it was Julia. Julia Lennon. So, and she was a real musical talent with banjo and all kinds of different instruments. So, and she was struck down early in life, killed by a drunk driver who just happened to be a cop, apparently, barreling down the road out of control, under the influence of the worst drug one of the worst drugs that's out there, and legal too. Let's not forget alcohol. So, but no, as Pirate Larry mentioned earlier, he definitely had some mother issues. This whole business of I think it was called Rolfing, the primal scream therapy that he underwent. He was, open to things like that, and it makes sense with the hypnotism business, as we mentioned earlier. He would be all for that, and which would leave him in a pretty vulnerable place. As to what was one of the issues that we brought up with the hypnotist who we had on board just a month or so ago, and in closing, I'm not sure what kind of real sense of humor the guy had, but we did save some of the tougher questions for the end, as you typically do anytime you have someone on board, rather than just the kind of softball approach to the conversation. That, yeah, I mean, we asked him. One of the things was with two things: recording these hypnotism sessions, and then number two, having someone on in attendance as a like a witness of sorts, but just someone who can to be present to ensure that there's nothing untoward that occurs because of just the stories that so many people, including myself, have heard over the years. And he was totally opposed to both of these things for whatever reason. Didn't want any recording because he thought people, I guess, his response was people are still stuck in the cassette generation where they're fumbling around with tape cassette recorders and the like, not realizing that we've kind of, things have come a long way since the 1980s. People can digitally record. I mean, I have a handheld digital recorder that runs for, several hours at least without any interruptions. So that was his big concern, that you'd be interrupted having to flip the tape over every 60 or 90 minutes or whatever the deal was. So it didn't really seem to hold water. Not from my way of seeing things, at least. And then having someone in attendance as a witness, or just someone that could be there, as just quietly sitting by the wayside or in attendance to keep an eye on things. He didn't like that idea either, which, I mean, haven't we, most of us, I'm sure, have heard about how these are basic requirements for hypnotism sessions. So both of these issues, though, he totally thought were non-applicable and something that he was completely opposed to, oddly enough. So if this is the sort of hypnotist that Yoko had working for her at this particular time, coaxing John to return and having him undergo these supposed sessions to help him stop smoking, that when really it was done for more ulterior reasons, that could have been a big problem, of course. So anyways, Pirate Larry and Reverend Jim, we'll let you have your say here, of course, as we sail on out of here. Tulips and Roses, talking about how John will live on forever in our hearts. There's no doubt about that. On the Fence with Musa. You're welcome as well, too, Tulips and Roses. Our pleasure for doing this. We're just glad that our guest flaked out and we had this opportunity to quite spontaneously put something together for the public. I don't know how many John Lennon haters there are out there. Certainly a fair share, it seems. So we'll maybe hear from more of them in the comments section later. But, for the most part, I mean, I'm the sort of person who just like live and let live kind of deal. Paul McCartney, live and let die. we've all got our faults. Nobody's perfect. And he was an artist expressing himself. So they ended up killing the messenger is what we saw there in the end. I'm not sure who do we have there, Larry or Jim? Go ahead.
That's me. I was going to say, may he rest in peace. And on that note, we also lost Eddie Van Halen this week. And this year we've also lost Charlie Daniels, and I'm not sure who all else, but may they all rest in peace. And there must be one heck of a band up in heaven right now.
Yeah, well, what comes around goes around. So, just passing through, man. We're all here to go. It's like life really is a dream. And John Lennon himself, I don't know where he got the nickname the Dreamer, but that was a big part of his lyrics and his music as well too. The dreamlike state which life really is. If you take a close look at things, Shakespeare understood that. Whoever wrote that was probably a medieval almost children's song, row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Somebody they kind of picked up on that as well there too, as did the Buddha. Buddhism is all about this life experience being something of an intangible, can't quite put your finger on it, everything constantly changing from one moment to the next, whether we realize it or not, just slowly passing by, the sands of time. So I guess once again, just important to make the most of things while we're here and do what we can to leave our best mark. Thank you both for your comments, Jim and Princess Jaybird Wells. Some real quality items there. Lastly, we're going to hear from our good friend and pirate matey, if he's still on board, that is, and with us, which we presume he is, via Los Angeles, California.
Yeah.
Pirate Larry.
Thank you. My favorite John Lennon song is Across the Universe. I'll always love John Lennon. The first two albums he made, everybody should listen to, because they're really raw, and he's really, kind of stripped everything down to the bone, his ego down to the bone, which I think he had to do because, most of his life he spent being just a Beatle, and he wanted to be John, and it was a different voice, and people were mad that they broke up, and blaming this and that. So there's a lot of controversy, but John was a healer. He healed people. His lyrics were healing, and I'll always love him. There'll always be a place in my heart, for John Lennon.
Dana Shiver, Johnny Canuck, Rob Umferville. Sorry about that, Rob. We missed your comment. He was talking about being here from Canada. My favorite is Paul, but I cried when I heard John was shot because he's a Beatles fan since 1976. He misses John. Happy birthday. All right. Well, that's great. So appreciate you dropping by. We're always wanting to give a shout out to everyone who participates in the live chat here. Apologies if we miss out in doing so, but we very much appreciate your contributions and look forward to the next time we can meet out here in virtual time and space, which hopefully will be coming up later this week, this coming Tuesday. We're going to work on getting a few of the kinks worked out as far as the live streaming is concerned, although I do think that this new setup has, by all accounts and indications, it's gone relatively well. We had a bit of a hiccup there from the get-go, but thankfully managed to bounce back and get things more properly on course, as it were. So one more time, Barbecue Jim, Global Enlightenment Radio Network. Hey, that's Daryl, let's not forget. So both Reverend Jim and Daryl, courtesy of the Global Enlightenment Radio Network, they're two of our syndicators, so we very much appreciate their support. And speaking of global enlightenment, I think that's really, a lot of people, they bash and attack, criticize John for his New World Order propaganda song, Imagine. And even as much as I do have a problem with the whole New World Order crowd and mentality, when it comes right down to it, their agenda, as it were, the Kalergi plan and so forth, that I dig the song, man, just like I dig Bob Marley music, even though it's like this, a lot of iron, Lion, Zion, that's just the way things are. But great tunes nonetheless, and appreciate the work that both of these great artists did manage to produce over the years. Another individual, Marley, which is, you talk about, geez, we could have done the show just a couple months ago covering his 75th his birthday, his 75th year. Lennon, once again, had been down in Jamaica right around 1979. I don't know. I don't think I've ever heard of the two actually having a chance to meet. Reggae was just coming to the fore at that time, and so something that John was getting into a little more, really digging the sort of the feeling, the vibe, as it were, the spirit of reggae. So that would have been something if the two would have had the chance to collaborate. But another calculated potential hit, an assassination, Bob Marley, and his toe becoming infected with the cancer. Apparently, he was gifted a pair of, I'm not sure if they were boots or they were soccer shoes of some kind is what it might have been. And by who, of all people? The head of the CIA's, William Colby, at that time, his son, is the person who is said to have gifted these shoes to Marley on his, I believe it was birthday, right around the time of the big concert they had in Kingston, where Marley was doing what he could to bring peace to the parties who found themselves divided politically. Already this is just within days of him, another calculated hit, an attempt to murder Marley. Bullets flying everywhere, but, for whatever reason, Jah giving him the kind of protection which, ensured that he would be with us at least a couple more years. But the boots that he received, the soccer shoes, it just so happens that when he put them on, it was his left or right toe, might have been his right, that there was a wire. This wire that he his toe jabbed into, and poked into his toe, penetrated the skin, and from that point, that's where the cancer started. It was in his toe, same foot, I believe. So is this a coincidence once again, or is there some cold calculation, if you'll excuse the pun, afoot? Cold calculation on the part of some very dark and nefarious powers. We won't get into that any further here this go-around. You'll have to drop by for one of our future upcoming shows to see where we take things here content-wise. In the meantime, thank you so much once again. appreciate your support as always. Be sure to share, like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification button wherever possible. We're always looking for, with this voluntaristic, mutual, it's a mutually beneficial network that we are working on endlessly building and evolving. So if you have anything to bring to the table, a few hours per month of, at the most really, with something that you can donate to us as far as your time is concerned, and you have certain particular set of skills, whether on a technical or creative front, maybe marketing is your thing, by all means, reach out to us, get in touch, Pirate One Radio at protonmail.com. That's the way to do it. WPRPN.com is the main website. All of the other links, the most that we have available, the most prominent ones at least, are down there as well in the show description area. Who else did we not give a shout out to here? Dana Shiver, Joey Boomer. There's a couple of these folks here dropping in for just the one comment or two. Rob from out of Canada. Thank you once again. Jaybird Wells. Jennifer Knight. Tulips and Roses. Oh boy, how are they wrapping things up here? So, check out Sean Lennon's performance of Isolation, which he has posted. That's right, yeah. He was in prison for a while, too. Who are we talking about there exactly? Lennon? I don't think he was ever in prison. He might have been thrown in a drunk tank one night out there in Hollyweird. But John did say in 1980 that his thinking since Imagine had changed since he'd matured by then. He was a work in progress. There's no doubt about that. Doing his best to keep up with and move with the times. I think, once again, people listen to Double Fantasy, they'll see that he was managing, succeeding in doing that. Although the writing and staying at the top of his field in what is really just such a incredibly competitive line of work to be in, songwriting and a performer as well too, that it did bring him a lot of stress. So something that he fretted about constantly. Was that pun intended or not? I don't know. It just kind of came out. A lot of excessive fretting on his part, but good practice too, right, John? So apparently he was starting to like Reagan. Well, who knows? Neil Young voted for Reagan, didn't he? That's how the story goes. So maybe they were both down with the whole, I'm with Ron type agenda. Although, as I said earlier, I do strongly suspect, might be wrong, but there was a dark hidden hand to his murder and assassination. And I wouldn't be surprised in the least, once again, if Skull and Bones, Bush 41 had a role in things, just as what so many have speculated was the case regarding this John Hinckley Manchurian candidate as well too, who nearly managed to successfully take Reagan right out of the picture the following year. So there we go. Well, we do have to run. It's been a great ride. I wish we had more to offer you this particular moment. Hopefully, remember, we'll add the link to Johnny Canuck's Walking on Thin Ice tribute song. Get that in the show notes. People have a chance to check it out. Be sure to share that as well, too. It is just an indie demo, of course. Is it going to be possible to get it to Elton John? I believe Johnny actually sent it to him via Twitter. Of course, heard nothing back. Sent it to him via Twitter a number of years ago, if I got my facts straight. And suggesting at that time that it might make for a decent song for Sir Elton to perhaps consider covering, simply because it seemed to suit everything, the style that Elton, similar to what he managed to put together with Candle in the Wind, that great tribute song, and via piano and so forth. But there we go. All things must pass. We've pretty much hit the end of the road here, folks. Thank you so much once again. On behalf of Captain Long John St. Clair and all the rest of the crew here aboard the Robin Hood, until we meet again out on the high digital seas, I'm your host, as always, the show's Chief Communications Officer, Jaffe Ryder. "80 years, and John's memory still lives on with us, as does his music. That's going to be the case, of course, here for the longest time. Happy sailing, everybody.
Aye now, there we be. Having carefully looked over each of our navigation panel instruments,
checking every level, switch, dial, cable, knob, and pulley, by all accounts and indications, we indeed see it's time, once again, to drop anchor inside Mystic Bay.
Draw an end to yet another week of World Pirate Radio Live.
Remember,
if you're looking for a little more animated online action,
keep in mind we've likely got yet another great free-flowing Rogues Gallery after show
coming up for the next hour in one of our more premium, exclusive, and remote digital underground online pirate hideaways. Also, if you yourself have a new,
novel, intriguing, or otherwise underreported idea, unique individual, or pressing item in mind, be sure to either drop us a line directly over on WPRPN.com or fire us a quick email
via PirateOneRadio@ProtonMail.com.
We're always open to exploring fresh creative suggestions, intriguing guest ideas, cutting-edge discussion topics, and captivating themes.
Remember, WPRPN.com member site subdomain links are also always available.
Great for artists, musicians, podcasters, bloggers, social media personalities,
or pretty much just any old landlubber
looking to boost their online visibility, presence, and reach.
Basic personal profile accounts can be launched for just $60 per year.
Staking your claim now helps not only strengthen you and the network, we're also looking out for the little guy. That's right, folks. As much as half of all WPRPN's profits are redirected right back into the hands of the people who really need it most. Community charity. After all, we are the Robin Hood.
You can further embark on your own personal pirate journey by either liking, sharing,
commenting on, subscribing to, or just following us via virtually any mainstream social media platform, including Twitter, Facebook,
Gab,
or Minds.com. So don't forget to become engaged. Until we meet again out on the high digital seas, I'm your host as always, the ship's Chief Communications Officer, Jaffe Ryder. Tally-ho.